All right, so we're going over a masterclass, Mark Olsen's chapter 4. His chapter is called, I forgot the name of it, Cube Action in Undefined Positions. And so I'll go over it briefly, and we'll go over some examples. Again, I'll go over this a number of times as we go over this chapter. Undefined. What's an undefined position? Well, it's not a defined position. So defined positions are things like midpoint holding games, end games, no contact games, racing games. And he makes in priming games, what he calls priming is special, but priming has you have a different way of looking at it. And we've seen this before in some of the other cube sections we've gone over. There's a different way.
So which book is this from? Gary, which book are you basing this on?
What on? The current? This is Masterclass, the Mochi and Mark Olsen book.
Oh, that one, yes.
Yeah, this is chapter 4. We're finally getting.
I'd forgotten, yeah.
Realized that I've been working on this book for almost a full year now, which we stretched it out quite a bit. But we're getting to the end. So this is a section on cubes. Mark Olsen introduces what he calls the Olsen point system. If you remember, and this is a position, race, and threat system, which we looked at one earlier that actually David Presser developed, and we looked at in the context. It really wasn't part of the introductory backgammon book that we have with the Chris Bray book.
Yes.
But we talked about it anyway. This is similar, and I have to say at first I didn't think that much of this, but relooking at it again, looking over examples, there's something that value here. It is like the other Mark Olsen chapter. It tries to cover a whole lot, and actually Mochi's section on backing. It tries to cover a whole lot more than it possibly can in a single chapter. But the ideas, I think, are pretty good, worth knowing. And what I hope to do is use it as a supplement to the Presser system, which we'll go over toward the end. But Mark puts a lot of emphasis on threats. So, and basically says you have to have threats in order to double. And again, these are undefined positions. But the basic theory is, first of all, you have to have threats. If you don't have threats, you don't double, pretty much. Now, identifying those threats is the issue, as it was with the Presser system. And, Mark, and those are difficult to do. Mark tries to cover them. He covers them in a particular way. I think that more work, for me anyway, more work needs to be done on identifying the threats and engaging with how significant they are.
Does threat simply another way of saying losing your market?
Yes, yeah, that's
what it means. That's what threat means.
Pretty much. Which again is not, that's.
Well, losing your market is a clearer term to me. I've never quite known what threat was. But if it essentially means that, it's a bit clearer.
Yeah, you could, but yeah, and one of the things he points out is you can lose your mark in any number of ways. One is by hitting and putting your opponent on the bar, creating a strong prime, or just big doubles giving you a huge racing lead that you don't have. There's nothing you can do about. So so that's a good point. Those are hard. Those are not necessarily easy to suss out in a given position.
Well, John O'Hagan's got a method of doing that, hasn't he? Or getting a handle on it.
Yeah. So he says, what you have to have threats or market losers, as Ray said, and you have to have a significant advantage in 2 out of 3 offensive game plans. And the 3 offensive game plans he's talking about are racing, priming, and blitzing. Now, and so again, this is sort of the Presser system and where we're going to rank position, race, and threats, where threats are the threats, race is the race, and position. Mark Olsen is thinking in terms of priming or blitzing. Pressure system is more board strength versus board strength, but the ideas are basically the same because we're going to start pretty much from the same spot. These are early middle game types of undefined positions. But Mark Olsen is basically going to give a full credit or half credit for either racing, priming, or blitzing advantage. Now, in order to take a cube, you have to have an advantage in one of the 4 defensive game plans. I don't think defensive has 2 Fs. Fix that. So if you have an advantage in either racing, priming, blitzing, and the extra game plan is contact. So if you have a strong anchor, that's usually good enough to take. Pretty much what the contact is. So if you have the anchor, often you can take because of the anchor. So that's basically it.
Right.
And so let's go over we'll go over some of the examples from the book. So here,
Well, reasonably
What
good
we
on.
now here's a case where the threats, the difficulty here, I think, is the idea, well, what are the threats? And how many are there? And are they enough to constitute something that you would consider doubling?
Well, the easy one is you could just boom out a 5 or 6 and
yeah. Well, double 5s, double 4s, even.
Well, up to a point.
Not quite as much, but
yes,
double 2s.
yeah.
So
Well, the
yeah,
other
so
threat,
those are double 5s, double 6s are threats, and it's those are market losing threats. It's not as clear what the other ones are though.
well, making the bar point,
Making the bar point, yeah, 6-1, double 3s maybe.
6-1, double 3, yeah.
So there's that. Now, what about
5-3.
the other 2 spots? What about racing and priming and blitzing?
Well, we can't blitz, can we?
Yeah, no. Well, here's the anchor. You
Yeah,
can't
so we're not going to.
there's no there are no attacking threats in terms. There are no blitzing threats here. Now we have the better board, so there's that. But in terms of blitzing, black keeps the anchor. We're not going to blitz, as a practical matter. So we don't have that. What about priming?
Whether you get any credit for making the 3 point, I mean, makes it stronger, doesn't it?
Well, okay, yeah. But in terms of, are we in the priming game plan? Do we have a better priming game plan than our opponent here?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So that's the comparison.
That
It's not in the abstract how good it is. Are you better? Do you have a better priming game plan? So yeah, clearly we're better. We have the 5 points, so black has no priming game plan at all. And including an anchor behind our anchor. So yeah, we would get a full 1 on that for the priming game plan. So we certainly have that. Now, what about race?
Well, it's 22 pips with and on row. So that's quite good.
Yeah. Now he doesn't. Mark doesn't really talk about too much about that, but well, actually, no, he does. He does say something that well, if you remember the pressure system, basically we took it at 16 pips, was full value of 1, 16 or better. Mark Olsen defines it as if you have enough of a race lead so that you would have a double in a pure race, then you've got the full advantage. Then you get the full 1 for that. So with 22 pips, that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
And,
just looking.
well, we saw in racing, when we did racing games, 10%,
We'd be
10%
looking
minus
for,
1
we'd be
was
looking
kind of
for
the threshold.
15 or 16, wouldn't
Yeah, so here that would be like 12 for that, or and then and you could also do 10% plus 2. That was the point of last take,
we? Oh, yeah.
which would be like 15 here. So we clearly have a full race. So we got the race, we've got priming, blitzes, we don't really have anything. So what does that make? And now let's look at the black. What does black have?
I was just going to say, is there anything bad that black, oh, good that black could get, but
Yeah, remember,
Well-
black has had a significant advantage in 1 of 4 defensive plans.
timing, not much else.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have race, doesn't have priming. While he's not, he doesn't have blitz. He can't blitz. White has the the 5-point anchor. So, but he does have contact.
Yes.
He's got the anchor. Now it's a 2-point anchor. Which is not exactly the best anchor, but it's something. So what would you think this is?
Well, I suspect it's double an easy take. But
Yeah, according to the system, the question here, yeah, we'll look at it. To me is what were the threats? And we certainly the big doubles are threats.
but there's only two.
Making the bar point is a
Yeah.
threat, but it's hard to see any other market losers per se. So which makes it a borderline double. It's a
Yeah.
double, but it's borderline. If you didn't double
It's
this,
right on, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. if you didn't double this, you wouldn't worry about it. Doing a plus plus, but and it's an easy take. And
Yes.
so that's that sort of fits into this. That's sort of as introduction to system. That's kind of a fairly good example. I would say the only difficulty here is what are the threats, and there don't seem to be that many threats. Okay, let's look at another example.
It's,
Yeah, so here, I mean, the threats I think are easier to identify here. They're pretty clear, because we've got, blot here, we've got here to 10, 6 hits, a 2 and a 1 hit. So you've got three builders that point out that's generally 9 rolls.
Yeah.
That hit and cover. Which and then followed by dance, that's a market loser. Marcos does talk about O'Hagan's law. O'Hagan's law says that if you've got 9 market losers, you got a double. So yeah, I say here we've got threats, pretty good threats. So then we would look at the other systems and how's our game plan, or what are our advantages in our game plan? Do priming, racing, and priming. So let's look at the race. Don't really have race. We're up 3.
Yeah, it's not much.
So we're
Fraction.
not really significant, not a significant advantage there. So that doesn't count. So we don't get 1 for that. What about priming?
Well, it's something which we might end up doing, but you might be double counting, won't you? You're only going to prime if you don't hit the blot on your 4-point.
Well, yeah, the thing about from the examples that he gets, and we saw this early in Mochi's early section, is that what counts for a better prime is really what seems to be kind of small differences. But here, we have first of all, black has no priming potential at all because we've got the 4-point anchor, and he's got
Yes.
2 checkers behind. So black has 0. So when black has 0, the fact that we've got at least 1 checker behind our prime and we've got 3, that sort of counts as a full priming advantage in terms of conceptualizing this system. So the answer here is that we get 1 for the priming, with the priming battle. Now, as you pointed out, we're probably not going to get into a priming battle in this game. Because that's not what we're really looking at. That's not what our big advantage is. But we do have enough advantage here that it counts for the Olsen system. And that's kind of a key thing to me. If you remember the Mochi's early game thing where he's looking at your priming versus blitzing situation, there are very small differences that mattered, that gave you the clue as to what to do, whether to split or not split and things like that. So here it's kind of the same idea. This is not really a priming. We're not really looking at the priming game plan. That's not our best game plan, but we do have a significant advantage in the priming battle, so to speak, even if that's not probably what we want to do. But it counts for his system. And then of course the blitzing system or blitzing game plan. And and clearly we've got something there. We've got a strong 3-point board versus a 2-point board with an anchor behind it, with a point behind our anchor. If you remember in the pressure system, this point for black wouldn't even count in the pressure system. So we certainly have a significant blitzing. So we've got threats, we've got priming, we've got blitzing, no race. What about black? So I mean that's going to be a clear double. Question is, okay, now black, what does black have? He's got to have an advantage in one of them. Clearly it's not priming, clearly it's not blitzing. What about contact and race?
Well, race is fairly even.
Yeah, race is fairly even.
To me, the main thing is that white is almost certainly going to hit that. I don't think if white could hit that blot on the 4-point, he would do, whether or not he can make the point.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that sort of to talk about this system.
I mean, that's the first thing I would see. I don't know quite how I'd describe it. I mean, that could then lead to priming, or it could lead to blitzing, or even winning the race. But if black gets that point, that's going to turn it around a lot.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's look at the system. What does it tell us? Does black have a take here?
Well, I'm struggling to put it in Presser's terms, but what I perceive is it's not easy for black to win because of white's advanced anchor. He might take because white hasn't got all that number of checkers in the zone.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not using the Presser language.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So let's look about that. So if you're looking at the Presser method, you're saying, okay, we don't have any. We have minimal for race, 0.1 maybe he would call it, and for board we've got 0.75, 0.3, got 1, so we got a full 1 for board. Threats, well, you know, here's where the threats, they're clear, but you have to, I think David would say, we've got 6, 7, 8, we've only got 9 checkers in the zone. So while we have threats, they're clear threats, it's not like we have 11 checkers in the zone.
Yeah,
So, you know, if we have to do, you know, if we have to hit with this checker and come back and get hit back, all of a sudden, you know, we're not in a commanding position anymore. We don't have the ammunition. So while we have clear threats, I think under the Olsen system, you know, David, the pressure system, I don't think we give the threats a full 1 because we don't have enough checkers in the zone. Certainly we have
Yeah.
threats. Uh, the one thing also in the pressure system is gamma potential, which is not formally in the Mark Olsen system, although he does talk about it a little bit, but and so from that you would say, well, let's look at you know, 0.1 for race, say 1 for board, 7.5 for threats. Gamma potential is probably 0.2 or 0.3, and we're up to like 2.5. And so the pressure system will tell you, okay, this is a clear take, to clear double, clear take. And so and the Olsen system would say you have a, well, you don't have a significant advantage in any game plan, but you know, the race is close. It's not really an advantage, but you have, you know, but it's not that much. So it would be enough. But you know, the idea is that would be enough for a take. So it's, you know, it's hard to do, and it is a double and take, big double, big take.
yes, yeah.
But again, it's sort of subtlety of the system that's you got to recognize, I guess, that, and it's you know, not easy. I guess not as straightforward maybe as it could be. Yeah, I think in this one the pressure system is more straightforward. That it's not only is a double, it's also a take. And again, it's quantifying the threats. It's not, you know, it's not 1 or 0 for threats. It's yes threats, but not overwhelming threats necessarily. I think that's the way I would say it here.
Right.
Let's
As I
look
said,
at
this pressure system is described in Art Benjamin's article in the new prime time. Is but it's quite complicated.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's quantification, which I find I guess you have to practice it a lot.
Yeah, well, any of these, yeah, these are systematic tools, and you have to practice them a lot. I mean, there are subtleties in the pressure system that are difficult, and a lot of them involve evaluating the type, the nature and the strength of the threats. Those are the difficult ones. I mean, the races are usually pretty easy, obviously because it's just a pip count. Although there are a few times where the race is misleading that can throw you off. And the strength of the board and the pressure system is also fairly simple.
Yes.
But measuring the you know, weighing the threats and considering gamma potential and things like that, those aren't necessarily you know, those aren't necessarily easy. And in here, the Olsen system again, you know, there are threats and then there are big threats. And then there are things like, you know, we evaluate the priming game plan. Certainly we have a better priming game plan, but we're not, you know, you probably hardly ever end up in a priming battle here in this situation. We're going to blitz, and the blitz is either going to fail or not fail.
Yeah.
And you know, we're probably not going to end up a prime. Yet that counts as, you know, as one of the factors here and that. So anyway, but you know, and that's part of the difficulty of backgammon is trying to figure this stuff out. It's not easy. Okay, let's look at one more example and we'll call it a day on this one.
Hmm.
Um,
We're a bit ahead in the race.
yeah.
We
Well,
can,
first, for question, do we have threats?
yep,
And certainly we do.
we can hit with
Put
threes,
this behind the
fours.
bar.
We can hit with threes, fours, fives, and sixes.
Yeah, we've got builders on 3 spots, so we've got 9 numbers that that point on 3, and 6s come out and hit 3. So we've got 9 numbers that point on 3, and that's as long well for market loser, then black has to dance, or maybe probably even just come out on the ace point. But but yeah, there are 9 there's any 6 is going to give us a bigger race lead, and black could dance again. Your double 3s is a super joker. Double 6 isn't bad either. So certainly we have threats here. Now what else do we have? Do we have, and well, it's a race. We have a racing lead of 16.
Yeah,
But that's got to count as a full advantage in the race. Priming.
um, it's a bit unlikely because we've got those checkers on the 2 point. We've got 2 gaps to fill in too.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't think we have the advantage. We have 4 primes in both cases, but we're not going to fill that one. We're unlikely there's a chance we'll fill this one, but probably if we got a 3-2, we probably wouldn't we probably would hit, but I'm not sure. But so I can't see we have an advantage here in the priming game plan. But compared to black can make this point or this point, if we don't hit him, because he's got spares back here. So we can't say I don't think we have an advantage here in this game plan, in the priming game plan. Blitzing though,
Yes, there's quite a reasonable potential.
yeah, clear blitzing. Black has no anchor, can't get an anchor because he's on a single checker back. And
And we might get
that's what we're trying to do here. We want to blitz.
and get a second checker.
Yeah, and potentially get the second checker, and we've got 13 checkers in the zone, so we've got a clear advantage there. So that would give us, threats plus racing and blitzing. So we've got enough for a double here for the system. Is it a take though? Does black have an advantage? Enough of an advantage? So clearly not in the race. Clearly not in the blitz. And clearly not in contact because he doesn't have an anchor. But he does have the advantage in the priming game plan.
Yeah.
So the question is that enough? And looking at it again, if you look at the other way, yeah, it's a fairly big advantage, I would say, for priming because black can still make the 2 parts of the prime, whereas white can't make the 6 prime, can't kill the 6 point. I guess white could hit and black could come in the ace point, but that's pretty remote. So the question is, interpreting the system, is that enough? Is that priming advantage enough? So what's your guess, right, or intuition?
Ask James.
What?
What's your answer, James?
Well, and I'm kind of curious how what Gary would say about this, because listen, sorry, I'm coming in at the end of this session, but one thing that was not talked about in this formula that really has hung me up over the years in terms of like taking a double is that I forget to take into account gammon risk.
Yeah.
you know, and that's huge here, you know, and doesn't seem to work its way into that formula.
Not,
But-
yeah, it doesn't, yeah, not into the Olsen system. Now, let's look at under the pressure system. Because he does take into account Gammon potential,
But
but
for me,
he
that's
calls it Gammon potential. So here in the
the biggest factor for me is that the Gammon potential is so big
yeah,
that I would be scared to take this cube.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. So you think you drop it, Jim?
I would, yeah.
So it's look the pressure system. We look at the race. White's got one for race. Board is basically the same board. Generally, well, White has a slight advantage at board because at this point now, if Black had an anchor here, we wouldn't count this point. But under the pressure system. But since he doesn't have an anchor, we can count it a little. But that's just it's a 2-point. It's a small advantage. So he's got race, small advantage at board, threats. I'd say you have to give it full count for the threats. Because of all the checkers in the zone, and this guy's sitting duck pretty much. You got 9 pointy numbers. You're probably going to hit loose if you don't get, if you can't point. So yeah, I'd probably give this 1 for threats. And then gammon potential. Is this what type of gammons are we talking about here? Is this and generally you're talking about point for and the pressure point system 0.2 to 0.5. So this is probably a 0.5.
The other thing I'd add, Gary, is that which we haven't really talked about in your system is just losing your market, you know, and you have 9 ways to point on the 3-point, 9 chance, and that's 25% right there, you know.
Yeah.
You point on him and you've lost your market, you know, so.
Yeah. So
But anyway,
yeah, we talked about that, and that's O'Hagan's law said if you got 9 market losers, then you should double. But that's when you should double. It doesn't necessarily say when you should pass. So, but under the pressure system, you've got you got race, you've got threats, you got gamma potential, but board you don't really have. You have a little bit. So even under that system, it would be a take.
Yeah.
Under the Olsen system, because you have the advantage in priming, it's a take. So let's take a look. So this is a take.
Yeah, it's a huge take.
In fact, it's a pretty big take.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Well,
in fact, it's a huge area to pass. And this shows you the strength of of this prime. And maybe to a certain extent White's got a very strong attack because you got 30% gammons, and that's really big. That's a full half for the pressure system. But Black has a little bit of a board that could develop more. 4 primes, even though it's broken 4 primes, they're not there. It's not nothing. You can see even if we point on Black, a double 5s or double 4s or something like that can ruin the position pretty quickly. So a few bad rolls, Black gets back in against a crash board, or even if White comes out, Black comes in and hits back, and then White can't perform, I guess you would call it, on re-entering. So there's enough play there. So this position here, this prime position is strong enough to withstand it. So that's something you have to interesting to know. And we only learned this by looking at these positions. So yeah, but it's easy to scare yourself into dropping this.
Right.
But we have, and I'm actually surprised that we've got 40% wins here. That's a lot of wins for Black. When it's easy to talk yourself into some catastrophe because a 6, our double 3, say, and we got 2 in the bar against a 4-point board, not looking so good there.
So,
Uh,
what does the presser system recommend? Double take?
Yeah, double take it. Again, it's, you got one for race, you 0.2 for board, that's 1.2. Threats. I would give it 1 for threats. So 2.2, gam potential is 0.5. I've probably given too much to threats. Probably overestimating the threats, because that would give it 2.7, and that's barely a take. But here, this is a big take. And so, probably not, probably too much for threats, but probably because of the prime that black has. The threats, we've got 13 checkers in the zone, which is a good threat, but if we can't extract the back checkers in time or do it cleanly, we've got counter threats. And so that weakens our position. So the pressure system would give you a double take here, and so does the Olsen system. But it's easy, it's very easy to talk yourself out of doing anything here. Or sorry, out of taking here, and it would be a huge error, as you can see, 0.4 error to drop this. But I bet you get a lot of drops.
Yeah, it's crazy how big a blunder it is, quadruple blunder.
Yeah, this sort of thing is always surprising to me because it doesn't look like black has a whole lot here.
Yeah.
But but he does have the 4 prime. And potential to make it. So, even if white hits and points on 3 on the 3-point, white can come in with a 1 or a 4 and cover this checker. And now it's a 5 prime. So there's plenty of counterplay. It's easy to see how white could just wipe black off the board here, but it's also not that hard if you look at it to see how black could come back and salvage this.
But now that I'm looking at it too, with hindsight,
Yeah,
is that I'm looking at how kind of awkward white structure is.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of a
We got
fragile structure.
but they're not, they're sort of crunched here.
I mean, there's some good numbers, but I guess I haven't worked my way through it, but I bet there are a bunch of bad numbers too.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I mentioned last, I'm going to do this again. There's an interesting feature in XG. It's called dice distribution.
Right. Yeah.
Which Mark also goes over a lot, but it shows you
not a lot of bad numbers.
Yeah, it shows you the green numbers are the good numbers. So like double 6s is like a 1. Double 3s, double 4s are great numbers. Okay, yeah, double 4s punch black on the bar with a 4-point board, 5-point board. 5 double 5, 6 3. All these down, and then the bad numbers, 4 2. Yeah, 4 2 is not great.
Yeah. 1 is terrible.
What
5
does,
2, double 1s.
why is that grey? What does that mean?
I'm sorry?
Why is double 1 coloured grey? What's the meaning of grey?
Oh yeah. I don't know what the gray means. What would you do with double 1s? I guess you'd make the 4-point.
It looks sensational to me. And why is that in the red area? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Anyway, that's
Well, let's look at I don't know if we can keep that up. I guess we can't. We gotta lose it. So let's look at double 1s. Oh, it's right there. I would make the 4-point, I think, with this. So let's see what they tell us to do. No, it's a hit loose. Wow. Hit loose
Look at that.
or hit. Here's to making the 4-point. Okay. So the idea is, yeah, attacking, put him on the bar. with the 3-point board and hope that he doesn't hit you back.
Because otherwise he can get out.
Yeah, otherwise the 6 lets him out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so so here, so it's a 50-50 game here pretty much with double one. So I guess that's why it's not, whereas
Yeah.
before it's a 60-40 game basically.
Yeah.
So double ones really hurt you. Now wonder what your double sixes. What if you come around and hit, or you can come around and hit twice and leave a checker back there?
That would be my guess.
Yeah, so it's not hitting twice, it's coming all the way around. Now I wonder if having doubled makes that difference. No, it doesn't. Oh, yes, it does. Look at this. If you've already cubed, so actually, Ray, we were talking about this before when
Yes.
The play that if you've already cubed, you're kind of going for the throat afterward, much more aggressively than before if you hadn't cubed. So here you've already cubed, so now we're going to go for the gamma. We're going to take the risk to go for the gamma.
Yes. Yeah.
Because here, although this is a wash, but you're giving up 5% wins, but you're picking up 14% gammons. And if we don't have the cube, it's, we're going to go around. Part of this is Jacobi rule. We're going to come around and then double out. My guess is if you took off the Jacobi rule, that we're back to now. Even with that, it's just coming around and playing safely.
So it's the position of the cube. I rarely find that switching Jacobi on and off makes much difference, but
Yeah, it didn't. I would have thought that it might have, but yeah, so that's interesting. That yeah, if you've already doubled, then you're gonna be more aggressive at hit. But anyway, okay, so let's call it a night with that.
well, thank you very much for giving me a one to